This is Against the Norm with Nick Craig.
This is Against the Norm. My name is Nick Craig. Thank you so much for joining me. You can visit our website, atnshow.com, where you can download the podcast and get the video version of the show each and every week. That's atnshow.com. That was an interesting week. Couple things went on. We have a new president, like it or hate it. Outrage or not, love or hate the guy. Conservatives over the next 4 years, 2 to 4 years, really have a whole bunch of things on their plate. And what I might say tonight, it might come off maybe not what you want to hear from a fellow conservative. Maybe what you wouldn't expect to hear from a fellow Republican. And believe me, I haven't been brainwashed. I'm not drinking the Joe Biden Kool-Aid. You will not hear that on this program. I think Joe Biden is going to be a terrible president for this country. And if his executive orders over the past couple of days are any indication, I don't think it'll be long before the American people see that. But contrary to what the left did the past 4 years, I hope, for my sake, for your sake, for the country's sake, that Joe Biden is a fantastic president. I don't want him to fail, because if he fails, I fail. If he fails, you fail. Right? I mean, as much as I dislike the guy, I don't want him to have a bad go-around at president. Nobody should. And this is the big difference between the left and the right, is throughout the 4 years of President Donald Trump, the left wanted him to fail because they're awful, terrible, miserable people. They wanted him to fail. They wanted nothing more than him to fail so they could rub it in the Trump supporters' noses. That's what they wanted. They didn't care. They don't care about the success of this country. They didn't care whether Trump did good or bad things for this nation, because it wasn't about that. It wasn't about America. It was about Orange Man bad. We've been over this. I've lamented this for years now on this program. But that's not us. That's not us conservatives. I really do hope, and I mean this through and tried and true. I mean this 100% of the way. I hope Joe Biden isn't what we all think he is. I hope that Joe Biden does great things for this country. I'm a 23-year-old living in America. The things that Joe Biden does or doesn't do over the next 4 years may have a very big impact on my life. It might have a very big impact on yours as well. So I hope for my sake, for your sake, for the nation's sake, for his sake, that he does good things for the American people over the next 4 years. Now, indications already show that that's not the case. But it doesn't mean you can't hope. To use a phrase from his predecessor, Mr. Barack Hussein Obama, hope and change. I do hope that Joe Biden isn't the Kamala Harris, AOC, radical left that we think he is. I really hope that's not the case. Now, some things we've seen over the past week indicate that to already be not the case. The first being that the first thing that we did was get back into the Paris Climate Accord, where we give hundreds of millions of dollars a year to third world nations for no particular reason. So we have that. And then, of course, canceling the Keystone Pipeline, which was one of his other first things he did. I don't know if he did them Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning, but it was within his first 24 hours in office. Two things that right off the bat are not great. Two things that, yet again, put America back in a bad situation, a bad spot. The Paris Climate Accord. And I saw people on Twitter and, not Twitter, but Gab and Facebook this past week posting like, oh my God, finally, we're back in climate. We're finally going to be dealing with climate change. The Paris Climate Accord doesn't deal with climate change. It's a big bureaucracy to rake in a bunch of money. I mean, we had the cleanest air and water over the last 4 years that we've ever had, not being in the Paris Climate Accord. All that does is piss away a bunch of our money. So, take that for whatever way you may, but it's just foolish to sit here and say that the Paris Climate Accord or the Keystone XL pipeline have anything to do with climate change, because they don't. You do realize if you cancel a pipeline, all you're going to do now is just put that crude oil on 18-wheelers and ship them down the freeway, where they have a higher likelihood of getting in an accident, where they burn God knows how many fossil fuels driving to the refinery. I mean, it's not going to accomplish anything with climate change. It's a joke. So if the first couple days of the Biden administration are any indication, I'd say it's not going to be a great 4 years. It won't be. But it doesn't mean I still can't be hopeful. Doesn't mean I still don't want there to be success. And as much as I just talked about those two things, and they're very important. At the end of the day, and I've said this a couple times, but this is a little something for you to think about when you're reading or watching what might be going on. The Paris Climate Accord, how big of an impact does that really have on you and me? I mean, seriously, let's think about it. Now, I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's a huge waste of money. Now, are taxes going to go up because of it? I mean, probably not. And if it does, you're talking about pennies, because the federal government is so bad at doing literally everything. Literally everything. They don't do anything well. Is it really that big of an impact? I don't know. That doesn't mean that we should be in it. But does that have a huge impact on your life? Now, the pipeline's a whole different story, because you've got now thousands of people that are going to be out of work. That's a serious impact on your daily life. But I want to keep this in the back of your mind as we work through 2021 and into the 2022 midterms. Local representation. And that's where you have a change. We'll talk about some COVID-19 vaccine numbers in the next segment. Local government, from your governor at the state to your city, your county officials, wherever it may be. Now, there's an impact. There's a group of people that have an actual deciding factor on things that you deal with each and every day. Now, I understand there are things that the president can do. There's things that the federal government can do, depending on your industry, depending on where you live and what you do, that could have a huge impact. I'm not taking that away from anybody. But for the most part, as a good rule of thumb, the federal government doesn't have that big of an impact on your direct life. I'm not saying the policies don't have an impact, but directly, it's not that major. Now, that doesn't mean that we will not, on this program, and we as conservatives, that does not mean that we should not hold Joe Biden's feet to the flames. We will. We will hold him, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. We will hold these people's feet to the flames over the next 4 years. And you know what? It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be fun. Because for the last 4 years of the Trump administration, the Democrats did nothing but tear down and attack the president and his supporters. And I think that shoe is now going to be on the other foot. This notion that conservatives are just going to, vanish away into society and not have anything to say about it is nonsense. The things that were done and things that were said about President Trump over the last 4 years and the constant hatred and vitriol 24/7. It didn't matter what the guy did. People wanted him to fail so they could go, ha ha, told you, told you, told you. They wanted to play told you with the American people, with this country. It's just disgraceful. It's despicable. Now, I'm not sure how much of that's going to bleed into the Joe Biden administration. I don't know how mean conservatives are going to be, but there's people, including myself, that are still really ticked off. I don't appreciate the way that my president and I were treated over the past couple of years. I think it's nonsense. It's a bunch of sore losers. Like I'll say it a million times. These people are pissed off because Donald Trump came in and kicked Hillary Clinton's ass in 2016. That's what this is still all about. Hillary Clinton lost. The wonder child of the Democrat Party lost. And they couldn't get over it. The Democrats couldn't get over it. So now, they're in charge. Now, they're the ones that are in control. Let's see what they can do and how easy it is when the shoe's on the other foot. Stick with us. This is Against the Norm. My name is Nick Craig.
Nick Craig!
Welcome back to the program. This is Against the Norm. My name is Nick Craig. Thank you so much for joining me. You can visit our website, atnshow.com. So going back to the last 4 years and now in the 4 years looking forward, I really do think it is going to be interesting to see and watch the Democrats' reaction when they get pushback on some of the things that Biden and them do. Again, because we've dealt with this for the last 4 years where no matter what the president did, and again, this is a mindset thing. This is really the difference between winners and losers. I mean, say what you want about Trump and his supporters. We're winners. I mean, I want to win. I don't like losing. And I understand that the president wasn't successful in his re-election bid, but I'm an American. I want this country to succeed. I want there to be a country that is prosperous for myself, being a young man in my mid-20s, for hopefully my family in the future and their family and family generations away. I want there to be prosperity. I want there to be wealth. I want this country to be successful. How could you not? Oh, if you're, a crotchety old Democrat, if you're a brainwashed liberal, and it's about the man, him being Trump, it has nothing to do with the country. It's just, oh my God, we got to beat down Trump. We got to beat down Trump. We got to beat down Trump. It's just a loser mentality. You're a loser. Well, now it's your chance to lead as a loser. We'll see what that's like. In the last segment, I talked about, we were talking about the federal government, and it's been interesting to watch the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, like or hate what President Trump did or didn't do during his tenure in office, you can't say that the Operation Warp Speed was not successful. We went March of last year, early March of last year, we had no idea what COVID-19 really even was. Now, there was some chatter, but you and I as public had no idea what it was. We went from that a year ago to now a countrywide and a worldwide COVID-19 vaccine rollout. Now, I'm not going to get into the vaccine. If you want to get a vaccine, good for you. If you don't want to get a vaccine, good for you. There's plenty of things to read online. There's plenty of information available. It's the same way I feel about everything else in life. You're an adult. You can make your own smart, informed decision for yourself. I really don't care what you do. Now, I don't intend on getting a vaccine. That's my personal choice. I'm not going to tell you you should or shouldn't. Do whatever you want. I could care less. It doesn't affect me. And what I do doesn't affect you. So with that aside, we've got millions of people. In this case, it tends to be more elderly people at this point, and some frontline first responder type of workers are getting their COVID-19 vaccine in some areas, but not everywhere. Because looking at the vaccination rates, and when I say the vaccination rate, I'm not talking about in comparison to the number of people. I'm talking about administering available vaccines. California just 2 weeks ago was at 27.5% usage rate. Less than 30% of the vaccines they had, they were able to administer. Now that's jumped up to 37 this week, but still puts them at the worst in the nation. They are 50 out of 50 states in percentage of shots used. Don't you just find that, ironic's not the right word to use, don't you find that hilarious? For a year, okay, maybe not a year, for 6 months, every person in the United States has known vaccines were coming. Now, let me be clear with this. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have a magic wand to wave and fix all of our problems. Don't let me sit here and pretend that I do. But I'm also not a government leader. I'm also not an official that is in any place to be making decisions. But how is it that knowing this vaccine was going to be available for 6 or 8 months, how has the government in California not had a plan in place? 27.5% usage rate 2 weeks ago? 27.5%? That's insanity. He had more than 70% of the vaccines in the state sitting in freezers. Just sitting there. It's completely unbelievable. Well, maybe it's not unbelievable. Maybe it's par for the course. It just happens to be that Democrat California, where for the last 4 years, for the last year, they spent time pointing the finger at Donald Trump and the federal government. The federal government delivered on what they needed to do, sent them God knows how many millions of vaccines, and lo and behold, 70+% of them are still sitting in freezers and have not been administered to people. It's a freaking joke. And it just goes to show that over the past year, government has not been looking out for our best interests. Government has not been looking out for you and I. If they had been looking out for you and I, this wouldn't be a problem. And I understand this is a massive undertaking. I understand this is not a one solution fits all problem. I understand it. I understand it's incredibly complex. But making the vaccine was very complex too. That got done thanks to President Trump and Operation Warp Speed. So how is it that people are unable to get the vaccine? What have our government officials been doing? You know what Gavin Newsom's been doing? He's been vacationing out of the freaking country. While telling people to stay inside their houses and not operate their businesses, he's been flying around doing whatever he damn well pleases. Obviously not been working on a plan to get vaccines distributed throughout the state of California. And it's not just California. It's all over the place. North Carolina, it's less than 45%. It's a joke. Less than 45% of the vaccines that the state has gotten have been administered. We've received almost, at this point, 1.3 million vaccines. A little over 500,000 have been distributed. Where are these? Where are these 700,000 vaccines? How are they not getting out to people? In California, they've got 5 million vaccines in the state. They've given out less than 2 million. There are 3 million vaccines sitting in that state in coolers, sitting in sub-zero temperature, just sitting there. It's disgraceful. You really think government has got your best interest in mind? These are who you're trusting to make decisions for you? These are the people that you're deciding that you're allowing to let decide whether you can or can't operate your business, whether you can or can't go to work, whether you can or can't see your relatives, your loved ones, your family members for Christmas or Easter, Thanksgiving. These are the people that you've allowed to do this? They've known this vaccine was coming for 6 or 8 months, and they haven't obviously done anything to be prepared? It's unfreaking believable. But it's not surprising. It's not shocking. It just goes to show you how all of this has been so heavily politicized. Because there's no plan in place. Obviously. When you look at California, it's the last state for deploying vaccines to its residents, to its citizens. It's just a joke. Out of the 6 largest states in the United States, California is the only one that has a usage rate below 40%. It's just unimaginable that this would be happening. After all of this time, all the rhetoric about having a plan and, once we get the vaccine, everything will be fine. Well, what if nobody can get the vaccine? Because governors like Gavin Newsom have yet again failed their constituents.
You're listening to Against the Norm with Nick Craig.
"25 minutes now till the top of the hour. This is Against the Norm. My name is Nick Craig. Thank you so much for joining me. You can visit our website, atnshow.com, where you can download the podcast and get the video version of the show each and every week. That's atnshow.com. And I want to be careful with this because, again, it's funny. I shouldn't say it's funny. I can sit here and say whatever I want, right? Realistically, I'm not in a position where I can do anything or have an impact on vaccine distribution or anything like that. But it is quite ironic that over the last year, everybody and their brother had criticized Trump and the Trump administration for the things that they did or didn't do around COVID-19. And now the vaccine has been delivered. Joe Biden is in office. And with that, you've got states like California that are incompetent is the only word to use. They're literally incompetent. Again, 2 weeks ago, 27.5% administration rate of their COVID-19 vaccines on hand. I mean, you want to talk about an abysmal failure. There it is. Case in point. And it's not only California. I mean, you've got some just these, and it's just a lot of blue states at the bottom of this list. California, Virginia, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, North Carolina. All of these states are at the bottom. And in the case of North Carolina, the North State Journal reported this past week that we're wasting vaccines. Now, Mandy Cohen hasn't announced how many, but says that the doses are being scrapped. They've yet to give us an exact number, but they've either been in the freezer for too long or they've not been administered in a timely fashion once they'd been taken out of the freezer. So they're either sitting in freezers too long or they're sitting out of freezers too long. And then Cohen went on to say that lack of transportation is a huge issue. Again, we've known for months, 8+ months, this was going to happen. We knew the vaccine would be available in late 2020, early 2021. And now these health officials like Dr. Mandy Cohen in North Carolina are shocked by the fact that people don't have a way to travel and get them. What have you been doing besides shutting down businesses for the last year? What have you been doing? You put no plan in place for this? I mean, there are counties throughout the state of North Carolina that are being told, the vaccines you were supposed to get this week, you're not. I read a story about some county in the middle of the state that had to cancel like 6,000 appointments they had this week for vaccines because the state Department of Health told them, we miscalculated. You're not going to be able to get your doses this week. You miscalculated? How? How has there not been a system in place to deal with these things? Again, we look at what is the big difference between people on the right and people on the left. Now, there's many differences. What is the big one? Government. The size and scope of government. And yet again, we are seeing, as we've seen since the beginning of time now, that as we have seen, government has yet again failed its people. The things that it's supposed to do, it does shockingly poorly. And we're seeing it yet again right here. Now, I'm not saying that the vaccine distribution should be happening through only private entities or private business. I don't know. I don't know who should be in charge of it. I don't have all the pertinent information. I have no idea how the infrastructure is laid out. Again, I don't want to sit here and Monday morning quarterback or armchair quarterback vaccine distribution. I don't know anything about it. But I'm also not the Department of Health and Human Services secretary. I'm a 23-year-old kid in Wilmington that does a radio show once a week and works in IT. I mean, I don't have all of the things available to me, all the resources available like Mandy Cohen has in the state of North Carolina, or Gavin Newsom has in the state of California, or they have in Virginia, or all these other states. I don't have those things to my available to me. I don't have those resources. I don't even know what those resources are. But yet again, we've seen this is what big government looks like. This is what government looks like in general. It's inefficient at what it does. You saw it with the testing. How did the testing get done under Trump's administration? By partnering with private entities. By partnering with private businesses. Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aids. Those were the people doing the rapid tests. They were not being done by the federal government or by the state government. They were being done by private entities that could make money and make things happen. It's called capitalism. And when it's allowed to work, it tends to work. Now, that's not an always, that's not a guaranteed, but when it's allowed to do what it's supposed to, for the most part, it works really well. We saw that with the case of testing. If I wanted to get a COVID-19 test right now, there is some place around Wilmington, I assume a CVS or a Rite Aid or a Walgreens, that I could get a rapid test done and have the result in 20 minutes. I know that's what they're doing over at UNCW. Rapid tests. I could leave my house right now and go get a test. I would have the results in 20 minutes. Or I could schedule an appointment for the next day or two and have my results instantly. That's not because of the government. That's not because of Roy Cooper. That's not because of Mandy Cohen. That was because government partnered with small business and allowed, well, not small business, but private business, and allowed them the opportunity to do it. And what a surprise. A drugstore chain like CVS, like Rite Aid, like Walgreens, would you look at that? They can test people for COVID-19. Would you look at that? They have the ability to do something at a mass scale, at a mass scale, not a mask scale. Would you look at that? What a surprise. Because it's, it was all fun and games for the last year during Trump, right? Because everybody could have done it 1,000 times better than Trump. That's what we heard over and over again, right? Trump didn't have a plan. He was just flying by the seat of his pants. It didn't matter. It was just crazy Trump doing whatever. Well, now Joe Biden's in office. And as we were told, right, Trump never had a plan for anything. Trump could have presumably stopped the virus. I don't know how. But if we would have just allowed a Democrat to be in control, they would have. Well, here's Joe Biden's plan going forward.
If we fail to act, there will be a wave of evictions and foreclosures in the coming months as this pandemic rages on, because there's nothing we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So you're telling me what I've been saying and Trump said and people on the right have been saying now for a year. You can't change the trajectory of a pandemic because you can't stop it. There's never been a way. There is not a way. There is never going to be a way to stop a virus, stop a pandemic. A virus is, yeah, and I'm not a medical professional, but a virus is a living organism. What is the job of a living organism? To live and reproduce. That's what they do. That's what a virus does. So if it kills its host and it can't reproduce, it's failing. The goal of a virus is to reproduce and retransmit. That's the goal. We've known this. This is not some backwoods medical stuff. We know this. This is what viruses do. This is what they've always done. This is what they are coded to do. It's to retransmit, to reproduce. That's what a virus does. And this notion that we are ever going to stop that is stupid. It makes no sense. It's illogical. It's never been the case. And now we were told that Joe Biden would have the plan. Now that he's in office, he goes, well, there's nothing we can really do to change the trajectory over the next couple months. Yeah, no kidding, Sherlock. We've never been able to change the trajectory. We can get 1 billion people tested. Doesn't change the virus. Doesn't stop the virus from being transmitted. It just tells us if more people have it or not. Doesn't change the virus. Doesn't change how susceptible you are to getting the virus. It doesn't change anything. It just gives us a number. Maybe the number's good. Maybe the number's bad. Maybe it doesn't matter. Who knows? But Joe Biden's plan first couple days in office is, well, there's not much we can do. Thanks, Joe.
Nick Craig.
All right, welcome back to the program. Final segment of the show. This is Against the Norm. My name is Nick Craig. Thank you so much for joining me. You can visit our website if you miss any portion of the show, atnshow.com. All right, so again, I've said this on the show many times, and I still believe this. I'm not one to criticize unless I have a better solution. But in the case of the vaccine rollout, how am I supposed to have a solution? Right? I mean, again, I have none of the pertinent information. I don't know what resources are available. I would hope that the governments that have spent the past year destroying our lives, that have spent the last year picking and choosing what businesses can or can't succeed, would have had a plan in place to deal with the vaccination of COVID-19. Just my thought. Maybe that's too much for me to think. But it would just be nice if governments would do that. And as I said earlier about the Biden administration, while I don't think he's going to do a lot of things that are going to be good for this country, that are going to help this country, one of the, looking at the silver lining of a Biden administration is that now all of these Democrat states are changing their policies on reopening. Would you look at that? Michigan announces just 2 days after the inauguration of President Biden that restaurants and bars will be allowed to offer indoor dining at 25% capacity with up to 100 people. It must be closed by 10 p.m. So, nothing has changed in the past couple months. I mean, now there's a vaccine available for some people, but the rollout has been so pitiful. The virus is still here. There's no indication that it's going away. Yet now, indoor dining will reopen February 1st in Michigan. Would you look at that? It's quite ironic that right away, right after the Biden is been inaugurated, these restrictions are being lifted. And it's not just Michigan. Washington, D.C., Mayor Bowser announced the same day as Gretchen Whitmer that she is lifting the ban on indoor dining in Washington, D.C. Quite funny. Isn't that funny how that works? And we're supposed to believe this whole thing hasn't been political? We're supposed to believe this whole thing has not been about Donald Trump? Since day one? The start of this whole thing? The economy's being shut down, businesses being, ravaged. We're supposed to believe this wasn't political? Get February 1st, flip the lights back on, everything can open back up. Why February 1st? We're still in flu season. Flu season goes through the spring. We're still in flu season. But now you're going to be able to dine back indoors in Michigan and Washington, D.C.? Just like that overnight? That not seem a little fishy to anybody? Does that not seem, suspicious to anybody? It does to me. Because we've known now for months, going on almost a year, this has been about playing politics. And it was successful. They played politics so much that Trump lost the election. It worked. It was a successful strategy. You've got to, you got to give it to them. They wanted to sandbag Trump, sandbag his administration. They were successful at doing it. They just shut the whole damn thing down. And it worked, obviously. Because Biden's in office. Like it or hate it. You can continue posting on your Facebook about trusting the plan and all this QAnon BS. And more power to you. If that makes you happy, great. More power to you. But the rest of us here are living in reality. And the reality is it was successful. It was very successful. Now it ended up ravaging a lot of businesses. It ended up hurting. And I don't know if it's hurt beyond repair, ended up very much hurting the economy. Not that matters to, Democrats in political office. They don't care. Right? Because their businesses that their husbands or wives own or their family owns, they've been fine this whole time. Right? They've been getting their big government contracts still, their big government bids. So they haven't been affected. But little mom and pop restaurants have been freaking destroyed. So, and again, the government has been no help. And it's taken private business like Barstool Sports, who's raised over almost $30 million. Almost $30 million has given support to 175 businesses. That's how this has been going. Right? Because government's not helped us at all. Republicans or Democrats. And when the going gets tough, they wave $600 measly in front of your face like you're an animal and hope that you just forget all your problems. And obviously people have, because everybody got their $600 stimulus check and then everybody shut up about it. Yet private business, which we've been told should be allowed to do whatever they want, right? Private business can censor you online. Private business can delete your account. Private business like Amazon can remove Parler from the internet. Those private businesses can do whatever they want. But your private business, a bar or a restaurant or a store, well, your private business, now that's a different story. That doesn't matter. That doesn't count. You shouldn't be allowed to do what you want. And this all goes back to the fact that there was not enough civil disobedience with this. There were not enough business owners. And again, I'm not in the position. It's easy for me to sit here and say, but there were not enough business owners, frankly, that were willing to stand up against it. That's been the case since day one. In the case of North Carolina, restaurants and bars stood up against it. They had their ABC licenses instantly revoked. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? And this past year has been awful for small business. Unless you've been Amazon or Walmart or Target, you've been screwed over the past year. And government hasn't done anything to help you. And now that Joe Biden's in office, his plan, he doesn't have one. Because he can't do anything to change the trajectory of this virus over the next couple of months. Again, I'll play it for you again.
If we fail to act, there will be a wave of evictions and foreclosures in the coming months as this pandemic rages on, because there's nothing we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months.
Nothing we can do to change the trajectory over the next couple months. Nothing we can do. Well, that's great. Well, great plan. There's nothing we can do. Fantastic. Nothing screams strong leadership from President Biden, again, who did nothing but take pot shots at Trump, about how he didn't have a plan. Nothing screams hypocrisy like you winning the election and then you coming in within the first week saying, well, there's nothing we can do to change the trajectory. Oh, okay. Great. What's the excuse for state governments like California that have been unable to vaccinate their public? What's their excuse? Can't blame Trump on that. You can blame Orange Man bad everywhere else. Can't blame it in California. Can't blame it here in North Carolina, where the excuse is something about people not having the ability to travel to vaccination centers. Again, what has Mandy Cohen been doing? Besides getting up and drawing either a thumbs up or a thumbs down on a whiteboard at these press briefings and saying, oh, we're doing good, guys, we're doing good. Well, when not having a plan in place at all. Governor Cooper, the same thing. No plan in place at all. Clearly. But you're supposed to trust government. You're supposed to believe that government has got the right thing in mind for you. You're supposed to believe that government is going to help you. Again, there's your big difference between the right and the left. And it's so blatantly obvious in early 2021. Have a great week, everybody. My name is Nick Craig. This is Against the Norm. We'll see you next time.